Okay, so let us talk a little bit about what are the chakras. So in order to get to what are the chakras, we really need to look at what is the stuff that's inside the chakras. What is the energy that moves around the chakras in the first place? So this stuff, in the yoga tradition, they call it prana. In Chinese, they call it qi. And in the Japanese traditional system, they call it ki. And they're all pointing, or they all mean the same thing. It's loosely translated as life force energy, or a type of energy. So when we hear the words prana or chi, we often hear it in the context of the human being. So the chi around the human, or the chi inside the human being, and how it influences us in various ways. But what I want to sort of also discuss and sort of step back from just looking at the human is to actually look at prana or chi outside of the human being. So this chi, this prana, actually exists beyond the human being and exists in all things. So it actually is described as permeating throughout the entire universe. And one way to help is to create a visual image in your mind. So it's like a giant electromagnetic field that radiates and permeates through all things. And it's kind of like the fabric of the universe. So everything's kind of swimming inside this stuff. And if you look into the textbooks of various traditions, but in particular Taoism, so the Chinese system, is that they really studied this qi they had a lot of time. So they really studied this qi because they realized it had a lot of influence on our well-being and on our health, and also on the way our food grows and the way the weather influences us. So they studied this qi, and they came up with three primary divisions. There's earth qi. So this is concerned with the energies of the earth. And they believe that there's energy lines and areas or pockets of energy that are more condensed or more powerful in certain areas on the earth than others. And this earth chi comes up and actually influences us quite strongly. For example, some places are better to grow crops. Some places there's no point, it won't grow. So that's just an example of how earth chi influences and affects us humans. The next one they studied was called sky chi or heaven chi, and this relates to the movements of the sun, the movements of the moon, even the effect of clouds and the weather patterns, and of course the alignment of the planets and how those affect us and how that affects the chi field. So, and then we have the human. So they saw that there was sky chi, earth chi, and then the human's kind of stuck in the middle here. And the human has its own energy field. We're about to get to the chakras, but the chakras are like main energy centers in the human being. And they call the distribution network is the meridians, or in the yoga tradition they call it the nadis. And so the meridians just distribute chi throughout the body to help sort of physiological function and to keep things operating smoothly. So it's fair to say that the human being or the human experience is actually quite complicated, because we're sort of contending and working with this earth chi that influences us. We've got sky chi that's influencing us as well. And then we've got our own sort of energy system of which we're trying to manage or trying to always bring it back to some kind of balance. So this is why every day, you can sort of go in and out of different moods, have different energy levels, and how the seasons influence our outlook, our psychology, and our feelings. So that's what the Chinese really focus on, and that's what I wanted to sort of just touch on, that is that to show you that the prana and the chi field is actually this sort of all-encompassing influence on us at all times. So some interesting points about this field, or this giant field that sort of governs all things, is that it's got a few very strong characteristics in it, or about it. The most obvious one is that it's highly, highly intelligent. It has to be intelligent in order to govern all this movement. So, for example, it's responsible for the initial heart beating in the human being. It's responsible for our natural breathing, or when we're not choosing to consciously decide to breathe. It's just sort of governing this principle of breath. It governs the deeper physiological functions in our body. It governs the hair growing. It governs how, from a seed, a tree blossoms. So all these things that we see and observe that we don't actually have any control of, it just seems to operate according to some natural law. That is what this chi field is governing, and this is what the pranic field is doing. So it's fair to say that it's highly intelligent and highly sophisticated. And you can also sort of see how it organizes things. It's infinitely organized with this high capacity for intelligence. You get that feeling when things just seem to work out, and you have very coincidental meetings with people, or things just seem to come together without much effort. And so that's kind of its organizing principle, or its infinite organizing power. And so this infinite sort of intelligence that it has is far beyond what the human mind could ever comprehend, especially as an individual entity. So a lot of the natural mysteries or the natural phenomena in this world will never fully be understood through the mentalization of the human being. But in saying that, I think the human being has the capacity to share similar qualities as this field. And this is what happens when we allow this chi to come through us unhindered. And this is what so now I'm getting towards the chakras. So the chakras, when they are healthy, they process large amounts of this chi energy. They sort of process it, and then once it's been processed and generated, it then gets sent out through the meridians or the nadi channels. When this stuff is unhindered and healthy, it sort of enhances the amount of chi that you're pulling in from outside of your individual self, and you start sort of pulling this chi power from the field outside. And this is what starts filling us up. And when we become more and more full of this stuff, we start taking on those qualities that I was talking about of the field, because it's not our individual ego anymore that's here. It's this pulling in this energy from outside, and that therefore the qualities come with it. So we have an enhanced capacity for intelligence. We have an enhanced capacity for intuition, for deep sense of knowingness, a deep sense of peace, an ability to organize things without much effort, an ability to live a life without much struggle. It's more of a fluidity that comes through. So that's sort of covering why we work with these chakras. So just to wrap it up, the reason we want to work with these chakras and clear them out is because when we remove any stagnant or blockage in our energy field, then we start pulling greater qualities of this chi from outside and inside. And this enhances or brings with it the qualities of the pranic field as a whole. And this essentially wakes us up and helps us to evolve as a human being. And just to summarize the chakras, so the chakras literally means wheel or vortex. And so it's a very circular motion of these chakras, and they basically just generate and process large amounts of chi or prana. And the meridians is what distributes them. Okay, so that's a bit of a summary, wrapping it all up in a very sort of bite-sized piece. So, of course, there's plenty of books out there. There's thousands of books, thousands of teachings which go into it a bit more. But definitely it's worth exploring and investigating a bit more about how chi is not just limited to the human being, but also is outside of us at all times.